Didn't I? No. Okay. Really? What does that tell us? What does that give us? Yes. It gives us the vertex and the stretch. So we can graph. Second version that we used was ax squared plus bx plus c. What does that give us right now? It only gives us one thing from looking at it. What? Right. That gives us the y-intercept. And then I must either complete the square or I must use vx equals negative b over 2a before I can graph it. Here we're on the third one. Now, what do you see that is the same? I've got my stretch factor still, right? I still have a for a stretch. Is anything else the same? I notice I have an x minus p, which is the same as up here, right? Anything else the same? There is a q involved. All right? Now, this one is good because this, wait, don't write that. This and this give us our roots. Our roots are our x-intercepts. And we know we can also get our x-intercepts up here. How? What can I do to that to get my x-intercepts? I can factor it if it factors, or I can quadratic formula it, right? See how they all work together. Why does this give me my roots? Because the x-intercepts exist at x comma 0, right? Right? So that means, what letter does that 0 represent? That's a y. So it can go there, right? So 0 equals a, x minus p, x minus q. And then, of course, we already know how to solve that. Either x minus p, x minus p must equal 0, or x minus q must equal 0, which means x equals p and x equals q. Whatever is written there, opposite gets me my roots. Is everybody good? All right. So, just by looking at the first question, you can put 2 points onto this graph, can't you? What are they? Right. So what is the opposite of p in that first question? -3. Everyone agree? And what is the opposite of q? +1. Everyone agree? Do I know anything else about this parabola? I know that it's a happy parabola. Why? Because there's no negative stretch. So I know, and don't draw this yet, this is just my thinking, I know that it's going to look like that, yes? Now, I have the roots, correct? Which means I have 2 dots on my parabola that are sharing the y-coordinate, aren't they? What do I know about the vertex when it is compared to any two dots? Where does the vertex have to live? Look back to how we graphed. Whoa. Somebody, what? I can't hear you, Abneet. I'm sorry, I'm old. Speak.
I was just saying the highest or the lowest point.
Excellent. The vertex has to be a maximum or a minimum. We know in this case it's a minimum because it's a happy parabola. So we've got some knowledge of the vertex. What else do we know about the vertex? It's got to be where, Sarah? Between the 2 points. So right there. Why would it have to be in the middle? That is exactly how it works. A vertex is where the parabola folds, right? That's why we talked about the axis of symmetry. So, can you tell me what the vertex is here? Where must the vertex be? -1. Why? Why does it have to be -1? Jashin?
If you had the vertex, we'd go up instead of up to get those points.
Okay. That's going one step beyond where you need to be to tell me about why it's -1. What did Sarah say? Because Sarah was right. The vertex has to be where? Right in the middle. So how do I know that the vertex has to be right there? Because that's in the middle, right? How do I find the middle of two numbers? You do know because you were all taught in about grade 7 when you learned mean, median, and mode. I have $10. Jorit has $2. What is the average amount of money that the two people that I just described have? 6. Why? Jashin. Add them together and divide by 2. So, what number was this? -3. What number was this? 1. Add them together. Is what? -2. And then do what? Divide by 2 to get -1. So I know my vertex x equals p plus q divided by 2. It has to, doesn't it? Because those are my roots, and I know it's going to be in the middle. Is everybody good? Now, is this an x or a y value? It's an x value. The vertex must have two coordinates, right? It has to have an x and a y. How do I then get the y value here? We've already done this. What should I do? I know that x equals -1. Plug it back in. The same thing we've been doing since the 9th grade, the very first day we put any lines on a graph. What is -1 plus 3? Is 2. What is -1 minus 1? -2. What is 2 times -2? So y equals -4, yes? So where is my vertex? -1, -4. And can I graph it now? Everybody with me? Please notice we are using all of our knowledge, yet again, from everywhere. Let's look at the second one. Do I know my roots? What are they? -3, and +1. Right? Everyone agree? Okay. So now, using our brains, -3, +1, we know what the vertex is, right? Just from looking and counting. We also know it because if I do 3 plus what? 3 plus what? 3 plus -1. What is that? 2. 2 divided by 2 is, but that can't be it, can it? So what's the problem here? No, the stretch doesn't affect the x value. Stretch only affects y values. What was that? There you go. It should be, again, -3 plus what? 1. Again, divided by 2. So I know my vertex is, my Vx is again what? -1. Where does that go? Up here, right? We know that it's going to be -4, yes? Except it's been multiplied by 2, so what is it now? -8. So I go to -1 and I got to drop all the way down to -1, -8. Is everybody cool? Nothing new, right? It's all stuff you already know. So, have a look here. What's P? What's Q? What are my roots? 4 and 6, yes? So what is my vertex? X. 4 plus 6, 5 equals what? Oops. Shut up! You said 5 divided by 2. So what's my vertex X? 5. Where does that 5 go? In there. What's 5 minus 4? 1. What's 5 minus 6? What's 1 times -1? -1. So what's my vertex? 5, -1. Right? So let's put that in there. My roots are 4 and 6. My vertex is 5, -1. Whoop! Easy peasy lemon squeezy, yeah? Nothing new. What's weird and why? What's weird in the next one? Stretch factor, right? Now, please notice that and that is the same, yes? So, do my roots change? No, what are they? Still 4, still 6. Does my X vertex change? No, that's still 5. What is my Y value? This is tricky. Over here it was -1, right? What's -0.5 times -1? +0.5. And it's going to spread that way. Is everybody cool? All right, now we get to the ones that mess everyone up. All of you screw this up. What are my roots? -2 and 0. because that x is alone, x can only be 0. So there's my P and Q, right? What do I do with them? Add them. My vertex x equals -2 plus 0 divided by 2. So what is it? -1. Where does -1 go now? -1. -1. And what's this? What's -1 plus 2? 1. What's -1 times -1? -1. So what's my vertex? -1, -1. And I know my roots are 0 and 2. There's my graph. What's the problem with the last one? There's a coefficient. Do I change my methods? Nope. To do this one, I know 2x minus 1 has to equal 0, right? Or what? X plus 4 has to equal 0. I heard it whispered. What is this answer? And? Easy peasy, right? Put in my -0.5 and -4. But now we're in trouble, because what's the vertex? What's -4 plus 1/2? You can do that with decimals. You guys are smart enough. -3.5, right? Divided by 2. What's half of 3? 1.5. Thank you. 1.75. There's my x value, right? You all want to work in decimals. So I know it's going to be at -1.75. But now decimals make this slightly more difficult. Yes?
It would be -4 halves.
Pardon me?
It would be
-4 halves. For the y value? Have you jumped ahead of me?
because you put -4 plus a half.
-4 plus a half is -3.5.
It's supposed to be -half.
When you graph it, you put -1/2.
Oh, I see. Yes, thank you. Okay, I understand. Yes. But the middle doesn't change. You still add them. -3.5 divided by 2. Thank you. I understand what you were saying now. So I know my x value, yes? That goes back in up here. Does anything change? No. So what is it going to be? It's more difficult to do with decimals, I think, because this is what, really? Seven-fourths, yes? 7/4 times 2 is much easier to do, I think. What is it? (14/4) minus 4/4, which is 10/4. And then here, it was 7/4. Oh, this is negative, though. Damn it. -14/4 plus minus 4/4 is -18/4. And -7/4 plus 4 is 16/4, so that's 9/4, yes? And then I multiply them to get my answer. Everybody cool? When I multiply them, I get a big negative number for a graph, right? It's like 180, but not 162 divided by 4. divided by 16. It's going to be about 10, right? It's 18 times 9 is 162. 4 times 4 is 16. 162 divided by 16 is negative 10 and 1/8. Negative 10 and 1/8. So way down here. I know you hate fractions. You always want to turn them to decimals. Is it okay to do so? Sure, if it's a quarter or a half, that's easy. When shouldn't you do it? Quarters, halves, eighths, easy. Thirds and ninths? Yes or no? No, why not? Because you get a repeating decimal. Everybody cool? All right. So let's talk about what we know. What do I know here? This automatically gives me the roots. How? Where do the roots exist? They're the x-intercepts, which means they are where x minus p equals 0 or x minus q equals 0. So the shortcut is they are opposite p and q, which we already know, right? What else does this tell us just from looking at it? Does it give us anything else just from looking? He waited for 30 people to come up with the thing that's been the same in all three forms. A. It gives us our stretch factor, which means all y moves are multiplied by, I'm not going to use an x there. And the third thing we can do is we can use our Vx, because that is P plus Q divided by 2. And then that Vx subs back in to get x and y of the vertex. Everybody cool? Now, the more astute members of the class have already known that I will have it all typed there for you. Okay. Let's look at this first one. I want to graph it. What form is it in? That's in standard form. So I have a choice. I could do what we did yesterday, which is put it into vertex form, right? But putting it into vertex form requires me to complete the square. I don't like completing the square, but there's a shortcut available to me if and only if this equation does what? Does it factor? Are there factors of 10 that add to 3? What are they? 5 and 3. So this factors, 5 and 2, thank you. This factors, so no need for completing the square. or quadratic formula. Right? Now, y equals x plus what? 5 and x minus 2. Right? So what are my p and q? What are my roots? -5 and 2. Correct? Everyone agree? So now I know my roots. I can put them on the graph. -5 and 2. What do I do with those two numbers to find the middle number? Add them and divide by 2. So, what's my Vx? -5 plus 3 is, or plus 2 is, -3. -3 divided by 2 is -3 halves, yes? X or a y value? X value, which means I can put it where? Anywhere I see an X. Could I put it back up here if I wanted? Could I put it here if I wanted? Who makes that decision? You do. What are you more comfortable with? I know that you guys are scared of adding fractions. But you're still going to have to do it in both spots, right? Which one do you want to work with? First person says the way I'm going to do it. You want to use this one? Okay. So that means my y equals, what am I writing instead of x? -3/2 plus 5 times -3/2 minus 2. Now I know you're scared of this, but isn't 5 just 10/2? And isn't 2 just 4/2? So it's really not that hard, is it? What's -3 plus 10? 7 halves. What's -3 plus 4? 1 half, right? -3 plus 4? -3 plus, but it's -3 minus 4. Sorry, -3 minus 4 is -7 halves. And then I multiply that. What's 7 times 7? 2 times 2? 4. So my vertex is at -3 halves and down, it's like 12 and a quarter, right? So I'm way down here. -3 halves and -49 fourths. Now, do I really care if you've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and a bit? If you label that, do I care? No. Can I graph this now? And I'm good. Is everybody okay? What about that one? Does it factor? Are there numbers that multiply to -6 and add to -1? 3 and 2. So I know that it's going to be 3 and -3 and +2, correct? Except what do I have to remember about that? I got to divide by 2, don't I? So I have y equals x minus 3 halves and x what? Plus 1. Everybody agree? Now, when we were doing factoring, were we allowed to leave it like that? No, we had to move that 2 up to here, didn't we? But we don't need to do that now, do we? Because these are my roots, aren't they? What are my roots? What are my P and my Q? 3/2, and what's my Q? -1. So my vertex X is what? -1 plus 3/2, right? Divided by 2. -1 plus 3/2. What's -1 really? -2/2 plus 3/2, yes? Divided by 2. What is -2/2 plus 3/2? Positive 1/2. What's half of a half? So my Vx is 1/4. What do I do with that? Plug it in where? Any x I see. Who decides what x? You do. I'm going to stay here because I want you to practice with fractions. So this becomes y equals 1/4 minus 3/2 times 1/4 plus 1. 1/4 minus 3/2, isn't that 6/4? So what's 1/4 minus 6/4? -5/4. And isn't that 4/4? So that is 5/4, which means my vertex y is -25/4. Now I have everything I need, don't I? I got a root at 3/2. I got a root at -1. And I got a vertex at 1/4 and then all the way down at just past -6, right? How could you show me that? You could label it, or you could go -6 and put it just past. Do you think I care? Oh, 16. Thank you. So it's not quite 2. There. But we're still okay. Right? I'm forgetting my old math. Right? Because I'm focusing over here and getting you guys to graphing. Everybody good? Right? You guys. Okay, let's skip the graphing for these 4. Let's just get the numbers. Is that one factor? Right? So P equals -1, Q equals 8, Vx equals 8 minus 1 over 2, which is 7/2. Everyone is good? Right? 7/2 comes up here. And I get 7/2 plus 2/2 equals 9/2 times 7/2 minus 16/2 is -9/2. What's that? -81 over 4. I'm hoping you're noticing that right here. What are you noticing, Jashin? I get opposites, don't I? Okay, what about this one? Could we graph that now if we were graphing? Do we have our roots? Do we have our vertex? Make a happy you. What about this one? Does that one factor? What? 5 and 3, right? What kind of 5? Negative 5, negative 3. What are my roots? P equals 5. Q equals 3. What's my vertex X? Where does the 4 go? Up here. 4 minus 5 and 4 minus 3. What's 4 minus 5? What's 4 minus 3? Negative 1 times 1. What's my vertex? 4, negative 1. Now can I graph it? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. What about this guy? What's my Vx? Right, because it's 2 minus 8 over 2. My Vx is negative 3. Where does that go? Y equals negative 3 plus 8. Negative 3 minus 2. What's negative 3 plus 8? 5. What's negative 3 minus 2? All of you are seeing Jashin's pattern, yes? What's different over here? Oh, wait, I didn't write the vertex. What's different over here? I got a negative here, right? Do I want a negative there? So the first thing I do is divide by negative 1. Negative 1 x squared plus 4x minus 21. Can I factor that now? What is it? Positive 7 and negative x minus 3. What are my P and my Q? Negative 7, positive 3. So what's my Vx? Negative 7 plus 3 divided by 2, which is negative 2. Then that goes up here. Y, I'll change color. Y equals negative 2 plus 7, negative 2 minus 3, negative 2 plus 7 is 5, and then obviously negative 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. Negative 25 is positive 25. And what's my vertex? Oh, it's blue. And what do we get? It's paused. Did I do the VCR joke with you guys? How this is pause on a DVD and then this is pause on a VHS? We're back. We're gone. Okay, so now listen, please. You notice that the next few things say exam-style questions, right? You must have figured out by now that the basic steps are no longer the goal in math class, right? It's not grade 6 where you were taught Pythagoras, a squared, b squared, c squared, and then the lesson ends. Right? You have to apply it. So, yes, I would like to reconnect. I said that already. So while we... Oh, that time it right away. Okay, whatever. I'm cool. I'm okay. Let's have a look at that. Work with your person beside you and see if you can figure that out. Everything I just said. There it is. Everybody cool? Your job today is page 108, 109. And then, everybody look on page 110. See how it's blank? Fill that in. Because your quiz uses page 110. So put all of your knowledge in one spot, fold down the page, because that is going to be a very handy study page for you, because it's going to have everything in one spot. Now, I know that half of you aren't going to bother filling that in. Whose problem is it? Yours. All right? Now, while you're working on page 109, I'm going to turn off the screen. I'm going to fill this in. All right? And I'm going to be nice enough to record it. All right? So you can fill that in later to use it to study for your quiz, which is when? Tomorrow. Okay? Go. Start on 109.
Can I go to the washroom, please?
Yep. Yes.
Desk that's in the hallway for our lunch event.
Please do. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I said I was going to record it, and I have. If you're going to try and fill this in on your own, and I recommend you try to fill page 110 in on your own first, that would be everything you know for standard form. Does everybody understand what I mean? Try to fill it in yourself, then go back and check mine on the video later. Cool? Yep.
Just a reminder,